Hi friends, this is Karthik from Caapid Simplified. One of the most asked questions, and a question that probably most applicants struggle with, is tell me about yourself. I've, I've decided to do multiple videos on this question simply because of the magnitude of confusion this question creates in applicants' minds. Also, there are several approaches to answer this. I'm going to tell you about my approach, the approach that me and Nourah have used in multiple interviews and help people get an admit. You can, of course, refer to other versions as well. Like there's one very famous version by Dr. Stevenson. He says first speak about family, then speak about experience, then speak about the US, and I think he has a pretty good acronym about this. Interests, hobbies, I think something like that. Okay, all right, so I should probably remember. Nevertheless, I'm going to tell you my technique right now. My technique, or the technique that me and Nourah use, is what we call the power of three. Pick out just three instances in your life, that make you very unique, that differentiate you from the pack, right? These instances needn't be necessarily a certification or a success. It can be an experience that was very different. Are you a person who had probably the worst tasting beer in the remotest corner of the world? Are you a person who grew up in a upscale city in India, which is almost mimicking the life of a New Yorker? Are you a person that grew up in a remote village in Pakistan, and completely grew up in a conservative family, that the least conservative moments for you were in the US dental practice, right? Think of these very, very, very unique experiences. And when I say experiences, I'm not talking about events. Like needn't have lost someone dear to you. You needn't have these moments where you will shed tears. You just need to have unique experiences. Think about what unique aspects of your life differentiate you. Do you have a sibling who comes from a different background? Do you have a parent who has extremely different expectations of you, who wants, who gave you a choice to get married sooner and go to the US, but you refused? Did you have to cope up with like early parenthood prior to applying to DDS and come through that difficulty? Did you have to go to Canada and then come to the US in order to settle your foot here? Are you like one of the very young applicants who had to fight through discouragement to make it through the application process? Are you interested in extremely unique aspects of dentistry like ergonomics or social activism? Do you stand up for immigrants or work for patients who are AIDS prevention in the remotest corners of US? Have you had a shadowing experience from a dentist who is completely ideologically different from you, maybe even racist to some extent? So think about these very, very unique experiences, and definitely we are all an ocean, a cloud of these unique experiences. So you must drill through your memory. You must try to brainstorm. That's exactly what we do in our interview coaching as well. We push people to think about what's unique, what's differentiated about them, and pick out three instances. Now this number three has a very unique perspective. It gives the first instance gives a sense of start, the middle gives them a sense of continuation, and the third gives them a sense of conclusion. So you give a start, conclusion, and end within the same answer. The tell me about yourself itself can be designed around these three unique perspectives. You tell them, hey, rather than beating around the bush, I'm going to speak to you about three unique instances in my life that best describe who I am. One could be, and when you tell this at the very beginning, it sets the right expectation in the interviewer's mind, that they will expect you to cover three different topics before they can move on to the next question. It's not this infinitely long answer that they're going to get bored down with. And then you maybe can pick up the first instance from your childhood, your parenting, your the way you were brought up, your family here in the US or back in India, back in whichever country you are in. The second instance could probably be like a professional or personal experience that you've had, but again, something that's very unique. And when I'm thinking, I'm not talking about like I did an internship in this extremely remote place in Alaska. It can even be something very simple. I did an internship in northern New Jersey, which was a family dental practice by a bunch of Hispanic doctors who settled couple of years, couple of generations earlier, and I learned what it means to have generational leadership in terms of exposure. So, second one can be something like probably personal or professional experience, and the third unique aspect about you can be a non-personal facet. A non-professional facet. What does that mean? It could be something like, I aspire to be, I wish to be, I am involved in, I bring different perspectives. Something that is your hobby, your activity, your interest, your goal, your inspiration, something along those lines that is intangible, that is not connected to your childhood, and that makes you extremely unique. I've heard people, give extremely different ideas for this, from talking about how spiritual they are to how empathetic they are because of a very unique nuance, or how good they are at translation for certain patients, or how good they are at picking up new languages in a certain scenario. So basically, it's an intangible skill, and it's something connected to their personal life, but it's not exactly a professional one. It can be applied anywhere, right? So you can pick out a certain instance like this and talk about this as the third unique instance. So, simple thumb rule: pick out 3 instances that make you really unique and have a connecting story between these 3 unique instances. Just mention to the interviewer that I am going to talk about 3 instances that best describe me, and then talk about instance 1, instance 2, instance 3, and close. Why do we do this? Tell me about yourself can be a very, very effective engine, can be a very effective seed. Now, when I say seed, that means you can sow in the interviewer's mind follow-up questions. If you've sown that well, most of the interview would be in your favor, where they will have follow-up questions exactly based on the tell me about yourself introduction that you gave them. You can see these initial thoughts in their head and expect to have like reflections of those in the subsequent questions. And that means you are in control of the interview, which is a fantastic way to crack through interviews, right? So take 3, which is 3 is an easy number to retain, and just sow these seeds, telling them these 3 unique experiences. Naturally, they'll have this level of curiosity to know more about the experience, and they'll be like, hey, when did this happen? Where did this happen? Why was it this way? Why do you bring this perspective? How do you think religion can combine with science? How can you possibly practice that? What did it feel like to work with these immigrant patients? So on and so forth, right? You can see that seed of curiosity in them, because the story is so different, so unheard of in life, and makes them all the more curious to know more about that particular question. Once you complete these 3, just keep in mind, once you complete drafting these 3 and preparing through these 3, keep in mind to keep it short. Keeping the tell me about yourself succinct can make a big difference. A typical time frame that I give people for practicing is 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes for the tell me about yourself question. More than that, it gets kind of boring. So even if your experience is extremely profound, you should be explaining that experience in 3 to 4 sentences. Within 3 to 4 sentences, try to finish each unique experience, because scarcity drives demand, right? So if you make something scarce, if you stop short of explaining all the details behind that experience and just tell the highlight of the experience, then they're going to probably come in and ask you what else happened. Let's say I mentioned something like, I was this extremely good cricket match, and I was for the first time inspired for something very different in that while watching that match. I learned what it is to have a professional career and learn what a strong romance is, and leave it at that. Your mind is not thinking, hey, what was this cricket match? How did you pick up romance there? Who did you see? What did you witness? And if I'm going to conclude saying that, therefore, for me, romance is a very big part of my career, even today, and I continue to take inspiration from that match. I would continue to bring that into the dental field as I work forward. You would see me manifesting that particular skill. Now they're all like confused and buzzed. They have this word, how is romance and dentistry coming together? How can I get this get explained to me about it? I've sown that seed of curiosity in their heads to get them interested, right? Or some people start in a very good way. They'll say the first first unique experience about my life is a pink elephant. And then they explain a scenario. The entire while, the interviewer is trying to connect what that story is to pink elephant. Okay, it's about 10 minutes, so I should probably pause and give you an example from my Tell Me About Yourself. Hey Karthik, tell me about yourself. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I would love to speak about probably 3 instances that best describe who I am, and from there we can take it forward. All right, go ahead. The first instance in my life is something where I was a patient. The second instance in my life where I was a killing machine. And the third instance in my life was where I was a healer. Let me now break the myth and go into it. At the very first instance, I started my life as a chronic asthmatic patient since 2. My parents were here at the Niagara to visit it, but they couldn't see the falls, not because of the mist, but because their son at 2 was suffering with asthma and they had to admit them in a hospital. So that's how I really stopped my parents from seeing the Niagara and returning back from the US. But right after that, I completed college, did a very good engineering degree, and moved into my first corporate career job. It was, in fact, the highest paying job for a mechanical engineer in India. Here I was manufacturing cigarettes. Can you imagine? I was working as a part of this company called ITC, and which had 6 million cigarettes around me going around. Even though it was a legacy company, 104 years old, teaching me what manufacturing in the old and new is, I still felt this sense of guilt inside me because I was now responsible for so many more people picking up asthma in their lives because of tobacco consumption. Luckily for me, I had an opportunity of redemption when I came to the US and pursued my MBA. I got my first internship in a company called Vertex Pharma, which started making drugs for cystic fibrosis. Here, as a marketing analyst, I would think about how to make patient lives better through offline marketing. And I actually got a chance. You might be knowing cystic fibrosis is a rare disease in people's lungs. So here I got the chance in some way to contribute towards improving people's health, especially a lung disease like the one I was suffering from, by becoming a healer. So that's kind of, in a short synopsis, my life story, going from a patient myself to a killer to a healer. And I think through these collective experiences, I've built both the necessary business skills and engineering skills to conceptualize a product and affect patient lives. Would you hire me? All right, I know it was exactly roughly 2.5 minutes in time, but you kind of saw. I gave you like instances of 3 things, and I explained what those 3 things were, and I also give you an impactful statement about who I am, my experiences in between, right? So now they're gonna follow up and ask me, hey, how did this go on? Like, what happened in Niagara? When did you come to the US? Were you a kid in the US? Were you born in the US? So on and so forth. The next set of questions they can ask is, what did you learn in ITC? Why were you in a cigarette factory? What do you mean by highest earning mechanical engineer? So on. The next question can be, oh, you did an internship in the US after your MBA? How did that internship go? What did you learn there? So I kind of put these seeds of interest and made them curious about that to make sure that they ask me specific questions from there. And then when in the follow-up questions that they ask me, if let's say they ask me about my internship, I will tell them that I learned teamwork and collaboration skills. If they ask me about my manufacturing experience in India, I'll talk about the India-US bridge and culture that I learned and how I actually honed my leadership skills there. I could speak about interpersonal skills that I've developed through the course of these things, or the behavior and attitudinal changes that I've incorporated into myself to make myself better a clinician, so on and so forth. You get the point. I should not be speaking further. I hope this example was strong and this strategy might work for you. It's called the power of 3. It's something that me and Nourah have used from time to time again, and it works miracles. So if you like the approach, go ahead, use it, and let us know if you get an admit. All the best.